Okay, so this is video 7. So as we said, as Kemet represents Israel, no, as Kemet represents Osiris, Osiris represents Israel. Okay? And Israel represents Alkebulan, as Alkebulan represents the Afro-Kemetic people. Okay. Now, so the word Egypt, where did that come from? As we said before, the word Egypt comes from Hip-Kapta. Hip-Kapta, that's where they get the name Egypt. They found that name on a temple wall in Egypt. I believe it was Lower Egypt. They found it in Lower Egypt, okay, in a temple that represents Hip-Ka-Ta. And that's where they get the word helicopter from, and that's where they get the word Coptic Christianity from, okay? Now, so many of the melanated people were re-enslaved in the Western institution of slavery, and that was the second time the Hebrew Israelites or Osiris-lites were taken into slavery. Okay, now, so what most DMT melanin rich black Afro-Kemetic Hebrew Israelites or Osiris-lites or Israel royals, that's where they get the word royal from Israels. Israel. So the people of Osiris, the people of Kemet, Alkebulan, the Hebrew Israelites were royal. Their spiritual royalty, Israel, of Osiris, right? Of Kemet, right? Of Alkebulan, because of the DMT, their ability to connect with the celestial realm, the spiritual realm, right? In the dream time, right? They can transcend the dimensions, right? Consciously descend dimensions. They can function in the sleep-wake time and the wake-sleep time, right? And that is when, as I said, when they're asleep, they're really awake. When they're awake in this physical realm, they're really asleep. Well, the DMT richly Hebrew Israelite, right? The Osiris, right? Of the Kemet, right? They could, of the Israel, right? They could function consciously, whether they were asleep or in the physical realm or awake in the sleep realm, what some would call sleep, right? They were able to do that. They were royal. That's what made them that's what made them royal, but that's what made them is Kemetic, all right? Because they were Israel. They were basically Israelis, basically of Osiris, right? The nation of Alkebulan, right? The nation of Kemet. Okay, so, now, so, okay. Okay, now, so as I said, they were taken into slavery second time. They want to take them in a third time and then wipe them out, right? Okay, because they don't want no trace. They don't want nobody to know who the real Israelites are, causing them trouble again, right? Disturbing their world that they're trying to set up by the Antichrist, right? No, they are going to try to annihilate all the Afro-Kemetic people. No more of this slave stuff unless they tamper with their brains and put those chips in them and all this kind of stuff. Right? Okay, so now, what most DMT melanin richly black Afro-Kemetic Hebrew Israels, right? Or Israelis or Osiris, right? Or are not aware of is after the Ashkenazi, Bukranian, Khazar Nazi Zionists ethnically cleansed the Afro-Kemetic Afro-Kebulan nation of Palestine. After they destroy that, all Arab nations, after they destroy all the Arab nations, because that's why they want this fight, they want all Arab nations to come in and fight the Zionists. That's what they want, so that they can start a WW3 and then bomb all the Muslim nations, right? And break down their barriers and destroy that, right? Then they move on right? No, and then what? They break them down, and then they move into Africa and destroy the African nations, right? And They want this nuclear war. That's what I'm trying to say. They want the nuclear war. They want to destroy the Arab nations. That way, once they destroy the Arab nations, then they move on to the African nations, right? Because who's the African nations going to go to? They can't go to Russia. They won't be going to China. They won't be nobody to help them, right? And then they re-enslave them, right? So it's all a part of a strategy. They want this war. They want it bad, right? But they don't give it to them. Take their money. Take the money from boycott. Sanction them. Cut off those corporations that, support the Zionists. Sanction America for the genocide. Cut off their money. You cut off their money, cut off these corporations, you cut them off, right? Once you cut them off, they can't have the war, right? They'll stop once you sanction them and you cut off the money. And you cut off the money by boycotting them, right? Okay. And it has to be done on a global scale. All the countries have to boycott them, kick their, isolate them, kick their ambassadors out, close down their embassies, kick out their military bases. Don't sell them the oil. There's many things you can do besides go to war, physical war. What do they say? There's more than one way to skin a bat, a crazy bat, right? You know, there's more than one way. Take the money. Take their money. Cut them off, right? Now, and secure America, Republic America, right? Because they got all of these, what do they got? They're called sleeper cells, terrorist sleeper cells, right? From South America, all of this, not only South America, but all these immigrants, inside the immigrants are the sleeper cells. Sleeper cell terrorists that they're ready to activate to cause havoc on American soil. And then what do they say? Oh, those are Muslim terrorists. But why would Muslims be doing that? Think about that. Why would Muslims be doing this when the whole world is in support of Palestine? Why would Muslims do that? That is the same thing they done in 9/11. It's said to be an inside job. And I mean it was said to be. I'm just putting that said to be. You can remove the said to be. Okay? It was said to be an inside job. Right? And the reason why it's said to be an inside job was because what? America's dollar is collapsing, as you can see. And who was going to be the wealthiest continent? Africa. So rather than see Africa be the next global superpower economically, right? They went in there and bombed them, right? To destroy their nations, right? Their infrastructure, made them use their military, right? Depleted their military, and then occupied and then stayed in there where their natural resources are, right? So they wanted to do that. And then when, their Antichrist came, right? There'd be no Libya to fight it. There'd be no Syria to fight it. There'd be no Iraq to fight it, and there'd be no Afghanistan to fight it. And if all those countries would have united, Syria, Iraq, and Libya, and Iran, all those Muslim countries united, there'd be a superpower. They couldn't just come in here and take that oil, especially if they have no money to do so, if their economy is busted. So it was advantageous for them to do a 9/11, and it's advantageous for them to have a war on the Palestinian people, to create genocide, to outrage the world, to come in there and start this fight. Nah, don't start the fight. Take their money. Take their money. They can't buy gas. Okay? Make them collapse. don't give them oil, close down their embassies, kick out their military bases, sanction them, boycott them. And that's what you got to do. And to be done. Don't send your sons and daughters to the Gen Zers. They're just getting their life started. Hell, they're just barely trying to recover from COVID. They're barely trying to get out their parents' homes. They're educating themselves because the schools were failing them. The public schools were failing them. They're barely trying to get their heads together after so many years of drag homosexuals in their schools, confusing them. So, it's like, and then next thing they got to do is go be drafted and go to war and be bombed with depleted uranium, come back maimed or dead or not come back at all. And their family just given a flag as memorabilia for their child's life? Really? No, don't do that fucking shit. No, you boycott them. You sanction them, kick out their military, kick out their ambassadors, shut their embassies down, cut off the oil, cut off their don't trade with them anymore. Take the money. That's where it hurts the most. You know how many underground bunkers the occupying colonizers have? They have so many underground bunkers. Please. That's like roaches trying to hide in the crevices, and you try to exterminate them. Can never get rid of the roaches once they enter, from what they said, enter the house, right? Okay. So the way you get rid of them is starve them, right? Now, okay, so anyway, so now they're at the scrimmage line, right? And they want to fight. You can't show up at the fight, at least the way they want to fight. No, fight them smart. And so what was I gonna say? Oh, so yeah, you gotta fight them smart, right? And oh yeah, that's where it was. Okay, so it was in their interest to start the war because once America is de-dollarized, who's going to protect the Zion? Who's going to protect the occupation? Who's going to help them maintain it? They're going to be surrounded by what? All the Muslim nations, all the Arab nations, all the African nations, Russia, China, Iraq, right? And the West could not help them because they ain't going to have no money. France is being kicked out. Germany's begging for food, work for food, got to work for food program. I'm just joking. But I'm just saying how destitute that Europe is becoming, how desperate because of their aggressive foreign policies and their aggressively inhumane policies and how they barbarically act among their brethren nations. And this is something to be recognized as well. And that is, in this new consciousness for, let's say, the West has had power, for 500 years. And all they've done is use it aggressively, forcefully, inhumanely, barbarically, gruesomely, tyrannically. They didn't learn any humanity. They are not going to be able to function in a world that is consciously, activated to, let's say, a Christ consciously, where, the nations engage with one another in a very, very humane, diplomatic, conscious, Christ conscious, civilized manner. They will not be able to do it when they're accustomed to aggression and force and colonizing and plantation and, their minds will not be, their minds will not be organized that way. because they didn't learn it. Okay? So, yeah, so, what was I at? Oh, so it was to their advantage to do the, to have this attack, right? Okay, and they kill their own people, right? Because what they say, they don't want to take they don't want, their people to be taken hostage, so they'd rather kill their people than have the people be taken hostage, right? Because they believe that impedes their progress. They don't want to negotiate for their hostages. They want to kill their hostages before they're taken hostage, right? And this is the Zionist Nazis, right? Okay, now, as we said, okay, so okay, so it was to their advantage to want to ignite the war, because for them it was the only way to save themselves, because they wouldn't have any allies to help them. So that was their desperate attempt to save themselves, and that is to have this attack and to start this genocide and try to kill as many Palestinians as they possibly can to maintain the colony, because the colony was supposed to be their secret weapon, right? Their secret weapon, whereby they'd have the power over Russia, the power over China, the power over the African nations. They didn't, from their perspective, they didn't need money. They had, their secret weapon was the Zionists, because the Zionist colony, like Jamestown, was to take over the whole continent. And that is, right, when their Antichrist arrived, right? No, after they defeated the Arab nations, took over Africa, and then had Ukraine and take over, attempt to defeat Russia or entice Russia into Ukraine, and then have the NATO countries come in and destroy Russia, and then all the NATO countries gang up on China, right? Then they could go in and take over all of Africa. That was their plan, right? Have, right? Destroy the Muslim nations, the Arab nations, right? Ukraine entice Russia in. NATO countries take out Russia. Then they'd have only China defeat with the NATO. And then they take over Africa and they win the world. That was their little game, right? So, we're going to go to video 7.